It was my birthday, a day I usually tried to blend into the background, letting the attention drift past me without much thought. Yet today felt different. There was a warmth in the office, a laughter that seemed louder, brighter, and somehow sharper because she was there. Ariana, calm and composed as ever, walked toward me with a small gift. And suddenly all the nervous energy I'd been carrying seemed to gather into one reckless impulse. I don't know why the words slipped out. Maybe it was the way her eyes met mine, or the way the room held its breath for a moment. "Will you marry me?" I said, half laughing, half praying that the floor would swallow me whole. The air shifted immediately. People chuckled, someone clapped, but my focus was on her. Her smile didn't falter. Her eyes didn't blink. And then, softer than anything I expected, she leaned forward just slightly and whispered, "What if I say yes?" It was impossible to describe the sudden jolt, the strange gravity that pulled me toward her in that instant. A joke, a fleeting moment had transformed into something heavier, something real, something I wasn't prepared for, but couldn't stop thinking about even as the office returned to its usual hum. The rest of the day passed in a blur, yet I couldn't escape the way Ariana kept appearing in the edges of my vision. It wasn't anything obvious, just a tilt of her head, a glance that lingered a heartbeat too long, a smile that didn't quite fade. I told myself I was imagining it, that my mind was playing tricks on me, yet the small moments kept stacking, undeniable in their quiet insistence. Every time our eyes met, my chest tightened with anticipation, a mixture of fear and excitement that I hadn't felt in years. There was a thrill in the ordinary passing in the hallway, reaching for the same coffee cup, exchanging mundane words that suddenly felt loaded. I caught myself replaying her gestures in my mind, analyzing every inflection, every pause. It was intoxicating, subtle, and completely consuming. I wanted to speak, to say something that would confirm what I hoped she felt. But the fear of breaking some unspoken boundary kept me silent. And yet, even in the restraint, the connection was undeniable. It was a quiet energy, building between us without fanfare, unacknowledged by anyone else but impossible to ignore. In that tension, I realized how fragile and precious something unspoken could be. How the smallest acknowledgement could shift everything. Even as those quiet moments continued, a storm was brewing inside me. I couldn't stop questioning myself. Was I crossing a line I shouldn't? Could I risk feeling this way about someone I admired professionally? Someone whose presence had always felt untouchable? Every stolen glance from Ariana sent my mind spiraling, replaying every word I'd ever said, every gesture I'd made, searching for signs, wondering if I was misreading it all. Part of me wanted to act on the pull between us, to bridge the distance and see if she truly felt what I hoped she did. But another part of me recoiled, terrified of what could happen if I stepped too close, if my feelings became too visible. I imagined the worst. Awkward encounters, misunderstandings, judgment from co-workers. The ruin of the careful balance we had maintained for months. And yet, the more I tried to suppress it, the stronger it became. My admiration had already grown into something deeper, something that demanded acknowledgement whether I wanted it or not. It wasn't just attraction, it was hope, curiosity, and fear rolled into one. Every quiet interaction became a test, a tug-of-war between desire and caution, leaving me restless, consumed, and utterly unprepared for the path unfolding in front of me. The fragile rhythm we had built began to feel dangerously exposed. Rumors started swirling, whispers that made the office feel smaller, heavier, as if every glance and hallway conversation was a test we hadn't agreed to take. I noticed the subtle shifts, how co-workers lingered a moment too long when we passed, how some smiles seemed forced, how a casual chat could suddenly feel like an interrogation. Ariana seemed to carry it too, the weight of judgment pressing on her. making her movements slightly more deliberate, her laughter just a little restrained. I wanted to protect her, to shield what was between us from prying eyes, but it was impossible. Every time we shared a quiet moment, I feared someone might misinterpret it, that her career, her reputation, might suffer because of a feeling neither of us could deny. And yet, the tension only drew us closer. In fleeting exchanges, our connection was undeniable, an energy that hummed beneath the surface, electric and unspoken. I began noticing the small gestures more acutely, the way her hand brushed mine, for just a second longer than necessary, the subtle changes in her tone when we spoke alone, the way her eyes held mine when she thought no one else was watching. The world outside our connection threatened to crush it, but inside, a bond was forming, fragile and beautiful, demanding courage to nurture it. Every choice became a delicate balance between hiding and expressing, between fear and desire, until the tension itself became a force we couldn't ignore. Asterisk, one evening, after the office had emptied and the city lights shimmered against the glass walls, Ariana caught up with me in the quiet hallway. The usual composure I admired in her was softened by hesitation, a vulnerability I hadn't seen before. She asked if we could talk, and for a moment, my heart raced in both anticipation and fear. We stepped into the empty conference room, the hum of the city outside making the space feel intimate, suspended in time. Then she spoke, and the words she chose carried a weight that made everything else fade. She admitted that my joke had lingered with her, that she had thought about it more than she should have, more than she intended. She confessed that she wasn't supposed to feel this way about a team member, yet she couldn't ignore the shift in her own heart. Listening, I realized that all the tension, the stolen glances, the subtle gestures, had not been one-sided. My feelings mirrored hers, and in that acknowledgement, something fragile yet undeniable solidified between us. I felt a rush of relief, of hope, of terror all at once. It was a turning point, the moment when what had been unspoken became real, when the possibility of us was no longer just a thought but a choice we could explore. In that quiet space, we agreed to move carefully, to respect boundaries, and yet embrace whatever this was quietly growing between us. It was a leap into the unknown, and for the first time, I felt certain that some risks were worth taking. Weeks passed, and slowly the world outside our connection began to settle. Rumors lost their sharp edges, conversations returned to normal, and the office hum resumed its familiar rhythm. Ariana and I found our own balance, learning how to navigate feelings without letting them overwhelm our lives or compromise the professional boundaries we both valued. Each shared glance, every quiet smile, became a small victory, proof that we could grow together without losing ourselves. I watched her strength in action, how she handled challenges at work, while still allowing space for something personal to flourish, and it taught me patience, courage, and trust in ways I hadn't expected. The tension that once consumed us transformed into a steady, reassuring presence, a bond built not on impulsive moments but on shared understanding and respect. We began exploring our connection intentionally, embracing vulnerability without fear, celebrating small joys and learning from every misstep. Life didn't become perfect, and the world outside still posed occasional obstacles, but the choice to stay present with each other gave everything meaning. I realized that love wasn't just a feeling to be enjoyed in stolen moments, it was a commitment, a daily act of courage and care. In nurturing what we had, we discovered a quiet strength that made everything else feel manageable, even inevitable, and for the first time, I truly believed in the power of taking a chance. It was a rainy evening when I finally found myself standing outside Ariana's apartment, a small ring box heavy in my pocket, carrying every heartbeat, every stolen glance, every quiet confession we had shared. This wasn't a joke, not a slip of nerves, it was a choice, deliberate and unwavering. When she opened the door, surprised to see me drenched from the rain, I felt the weight of everything we had experienced together in that single moment. The culmination of months of tension, growth, and courage. I told her the truth, recounting the day of my birthday, the impulsive words that had slipped out, and the way her answer had echoed in my mind ever since. I explained how that fleeting moment had shifted everything, how it had awakened something I couldn't ignore, how love had found me when I wasn't even looking. And before I could finish, she smiled, tears glistening in her eyes, and whispered the same words she had spoken months ago, only this time fully aware, fully sincere. What if I say yes? In that instant, all fear, all hesitation, all uncertainty melted away. I realized that sometimes life presents exactly what you've been afraid to dream of, and all it takes is the courage to embrace it. When she said yes, truly and wholeheartedly, the world felt both impossibly vast and perfectly right. Asterisk.